their butts get red. Get it out. Yeah.
And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Deeper Dive. It is Monday, December 30th. I am Josh Engleman. I'm joined by Chris Spags, and we've got a 7-game NBA slate ahead of us for today. It's nice to be back, and I feel like we're just going to have normal NBA stuff moving forward because it's been so choppy over the past few weeks with NBA Cup and all the holidays. But now we're here to just let it rip straight into 2025. So hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live, and follow us both on Twitter. Spags, how was your weekend?
It was good. It was the best ball finals, so that went fairly well. The downside, and Josh and I talked about best ball. Josh not the biggest supporter of best ball. I, of course, my Splash Play NFL channel, big part of that, what I do the entire year is that. And it comes down to week 17, obviously. I finished, it looks like I'm going to finish top 30, maybe top 40, depending what happens in the Detroit Niners game. Josh, how much do you think getting paid top 30, let's say, out of 230,000 entries? Let's say for tournament 2 that started in January, what do you think that payout is for the amount of time and effort you put in?
$500.
Right now, I would be making $5,000. So it wouldn't be bad,
okay.
but like, that's a lot for finishing top 30 out of 230,000 people. Like, I just feel like it should be a little bit more. Like it should be. I get why it isn't. You want it to be top heavy, but man, it just stings a little bit when you really think about the sweat equity.
Did you think about changing your process at all to try and win instead?
Yeah. Well, when you're picking players, 20 rounds of players in January for a tournament that ends in December, it's really a thing of just you got to get the guys that are actually active. So I had Steph Diggs on this team, Tank Dell on this team, still overcame that to have like a really good like 170 score. But yeah, it's just it's tough. It's tough to have that variability and so much of it outside your control. And DFS, at least, you get every night.
Man, I'm so happy that I have absolutely no ties to this nonsense.
You make money. Like I'm making money. It's a profitable year. I'm doing well. Again, finishing top 30. Like I'm really good at it. It's just, you could be that good at it and you could still never win a tournament. That's like a large one. And that's the pain point.
Yeah. Full stop pass. Full stop pass. Not interested. Sounds like a terrible sweat.
It is. It is a terrible sweat. It's a fun, terrible sweat, but it is a terrible sweat. You got to do it for entertainment, like anything at this point, I think.
Woof. Let's entertain ourselves. A little bit of basketball talk, shall we?
Let's do it.
This is an interesting slate. It's kind of balanced. We have multiple late games that make late swaps a lot easier throughout the day. We've got some pretty relevant injury news that we still need to get. But we're going to start off on the Chicago Bulls, 5-point favorites in Charlotte, 226 total. This is one of the faster games on the slate. Total-wise, it's sort of the middle of the pack. It's not looking like we're going to have Ayo Dosunmu today. He is doubtful. Jalen Smith is questionable. And then everybody else that's normally available for Chicago is available. What they aren't getting is any ownership. 9% to Patrick Williams is the high mark on DraftKings. We did get Josh Giddey to 10 on FanDuel, but everybody else is single digits across the board. I think Levine and Patrick Williams look okay. I think their ownership makes a lot of sense, but there's really not much here for the Bulls, and I kind of thought there would be.
Yeah, notice Dosunmu you think would open things up a little bit more, but I think Patrick Williams looks okay. Field to be there 9%. I got 7%. An okay value on a slate where there's probably better values, but he's an okay value. Everything else here, not the greatest overall projections. Levine, I think, close to playable. Field to be there 7%. I'm getting 5%. I think this is one of those times where we've talked about this before. Chicago, a lot of days doesn't project that well. You have enough usage in there. Salary is kind of appropriate. They could spike a tournament upside. That's how I feel today against a Charlotte team that's picking up a ton of ownership. Play one bowl as a bring back to your Charlotte stuff if you think the game's going to be close. And if you're playing Charlotte guys, you think the game's going to be close. But in terms of their projections, nobody really looks good here on their face.
No, like I'm happy to get Levine shares or Williams shares. I don't feel all that great about Vooch or White or Giddey, at least not on the DraftKings side. But it does feel like you should get to, or you should want to get to, a little bit more of Chicago, given the fact that the Charlotte Hornets are the most owned team on the slate. And they're the most owned team for really awful reasons. LaMelo Ball, doubtful. Trey Mann, out. Cody Martin, doubtful. Brandon Miller, doubtful. KJ Simpson is available for this one. Nick Smith is with the G League team, and then obviously Grant Williams is out. That is leading us to 50% ownership to Miles Bridges, 50% ownership to Vasily Micic, 20 to Salon, 25-ish to Mark Williams. I think we have a lot to talk about here. Let's start with Bridges and Micic. They do feel a hair over-owned at 50%, but to me, they look very clearly like two of the top couple plays that exist on the slate.
Yeah, so I'm over on Bridges. I have Bridges about 4 points higher than Stokastic does today. He's been averaging just shy of 1.3 fantasy points a minute. Not enough of a big sample size to want to, feel the most stable about it, but has played about where we got 150 possessions this year, 29% usage, 23% assist rate, 14% rebound rate, good for 1.28 fantasy points per minute. It's a little bit bigger sample size if you just take one of LaMelo and or Miller off the court, but then you're getting slightly less favorable numbers. I think Bridges is a pretty strong play here. The amount of run he's getting about 34-ish minutes. I'm willing to go above the field on him just because it's kind of an easy play to go to on an NFL night. It's also a player that looks pretty good. I have on the thumbnail over my head, which I don't put domestic abusers on the thumbnail too often, but he's that good of a play, that important of a play. I think he's good. I worry about Micic because Micic, you get Simpson back in there. He's taken minutes away from Micic when he's been chalk before. You have Isaiah Wong out there. Like, whenever Micic is chalk, they find a way not to play him, which is one of my concerns. But I think he looks good as well. I think these guys are core plays. I'm above the field on both. Bridges more above the field, though.
Yeah, I was just surprised to see it get to 50. Like low 40s was sort of what I was expecting. I don't have a problem with it. I mean, they grade out as, let's see, number 2 and number 4 in my contenders. So I'm not exactly shocked that it's grading out the way that it is, at least as of right now. The weird part to me is some of the other spots. 20% to Salon. I get that he's 3,800. He's power forward only. He's a good point per dollar play. His value, I got him at like 5.5x value. Scares me a little bit, assuming he's not starting, which, is he? Probably not, right?
Yeah, I don't have that confidence level based on the minute projection he's getting from Stokastic right now. I'm getting under 27 minutes, which for guys producing at about a 0.7 minute fantasy point per minute rate this year, hard to fall in love with that. I think he's an okay play. I feel a lot more comfortable going to Mark Williams. Like Mark Williams, so his minutes, and it's something that's a little bit of an anecdotal observation, but every 2 games his minutes go up. They went up 2 games ago. Over the weekend, they came down a little bit, but I think maybe he just didn't hit its minutes cap for whatever reason. So it seems to me like he should be able to get at least 26 minutes, maybe like 28 minutes. And Mark Williams has been a beast on the year, averaging 1.44 fantasy points per minute. So I prefer Williams to Salon. I mean, different price point, but I'm going to have a ton of Williams. I'm going to have 3x the field on Williams. I'll have, less than the field on Salon. So I prefer Mark Williams by a good amount.
He lost a little over 2 minutes because he picked up 3 fouls in a 3-minute stint in the second quarter. So if he would have played that string out, he probably would have landed around 24, which makes a lot of sense at that point. Yeah, I think he looks really good. I mean, he's just a killer per minute, dude. The minutes will always be scary, but I don't think they're super scary in a matchup against the Bulls. Like, no matter how good Vooch is playing this year, you're not worried about Vooch. You're just worried about Mark Williams staying out of foul trouble. But if his ceiling is like 24 minutes, then the fouls really don't matter. It's going to be hard to pick up 6 of them in 24 minutes. So I like that value. I'm a little less interested in Salon given the ownership. How do you want to handle Josh Green? I assume just by ignoring him.
Yeah, I'm not getting him at all. I have him way lower projected than Stokastic. I'm at 16 fantasy points today. So he's been awful on the year, averaging 0.54 fantasy points a minute. And I do weight the current season a little bit more, just try to level it out between this season and last year. So Josh Green to me, not a priority play. I get it with the minutes expectation, but I mean, he's just been he's dreadful. I'd rather play Salon over him, and I don't want to play Salon either.
Assuming Seth Curry maintains his spot in the starting lineup, which is what he had last time out against Oklahoma City, do you want to get to him at 3,500 shooting guard only? Because he's unowned.
I mean, the minutes projection's 21, so I assume that's him getting the start, but not getting a ton of run along with it. If you were to give him more minutes, I'd still probably be low here. I have him at about a 0.7 fantasy point per minute pace. So hard to love there. He could shoot himself into it, given that it's Chicago, pacey matchup, bad defense. But to me, like it's really the top three. It's Williams, it's Micic, and Bridges. Everybody else, I really don't want very much.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I do think Curry is interesting if he's still in the starting lineup and really just pulling no ownership. Because you can understand the way that it goes well for you. If he's just making threes, which is obviously his true talent here, I think he picks up a couple extra minutes, and scoring against the Bulls shouldn't be the craziest thing in the world. The more likely scenario is that he's not really getting those shots up. They don't, he's playing like an average day and he doesn't close and he plays 22 minutes and you're not happy about it. But I can see the path for it at super low ownership. I just wouldn't want to have a ton of it. And if he's 1% owned, you really wouldn't need a ton of it. So I like it as a super lottery ticket.
Yeah, makes sense.
Oh God, Micic and Miles Bridges today. This is just one of those days. Don't worry, it gets worse. It gets a little bit worse when we move forward. Let's talk schedule though for the rest of the day. It's very simple. NBA Live Before Lock will be coming up next. They'll get started at 6 p.m. They'll take you all the way up until 7. And then final Monday night football game of the year for the regular season. 7:15 start, NFL Live Before Lock. Laffy and Gajeski breaking down whoever the hell plays tonight in the NFL. I have no idea.
The Lions and the Niners in San Francisco.
Okay.
Lions
and Niners.
Game, doesn't matter for either team. So it is one of those games for you. You're fully justified in your NFL hate for this one because the Niners eliminated and the Lions are going to play full go, even though this game doesn't matter for them. The one that matters next week because they'll either win the 1 seed next week or they'll finish at the 5 seed, which is batshit how that could possibly be the case.
Wild. Who's the other potential 1 seed?
Vikings. They go head to head.
No idea, dude. I don't know anything that's happened in the NFL.
Commanders fan. The Commanders are it. Like Commanders, I think have a very dark horse shot, but like could make the Super Bowl if things really broke the right way for them.
What's their record?
They won game number 11 yesterday, so 11 and
no idea. I haven't seen anything in the NFL in like 7 weeks.
Yeah, no, Jaden Daniels is a revelation. He's one of my guys. He was on my best ball team. It's tied all together.
Nice. Well, hopefully that goes a little bit better than RG3 did.
I think it will. Knock on wood.
I mean, RG3 was awesome, and he exploded.
Different players. Jaden Daniels is like just a refined. He's great. He's one of the best hits I've had. He's the what's his face? The from China who went to China. He's a Tim Quarterman. If Tim Quarterman became LeBron, is basically what it is.
I'll reserve my judgment on Daniels because I don't know. I haven't watched him do anything. I need the NFL season to end.
He's not Russell Westbrook, but he does his job as a distributor.
Don't worry, we'll get to that one. We'll get to that one. Jordan L says, "Come on, Engleman, you don't follow it at all." No, not at all. Don't play best ball. Don't play DFS on the weekends. Don't play season long. I'm full stop out on the NFL. If I could, I'd get out of the first 30 minutes of that NFL show each day and do an NBA show.
It's too woke for you, Josh. That's the thing you said. Once they were dealing down, Josh, like, I'm out. He put his Oakleys on and he hit the road.
The only redeeming quality already got ruined. Don't they have commercials on Red Zone now?
They do.
Yeah.
It's annoying too because it makes it like a third screen where it's just an ad in it. It's fucking bullshit. But yeah, that's business.
I mean, for all the people that were up in arms about it, I mean, it was obviously coming at some point in time. Money's money. And the moment you can do that and get a lot more money, they're going to do it. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Anyway, NBA season is here. NFL is almost over. We can get to the NBA playoffs, which is the best sporting event that exists. But for now, we got to watch the Knicks play the Wizards in Washington again. Right now, they're 12.5-point favorites in Washington, 228 total. Problem is, we've got some injury news that we need to hash out for these guys. You just hop over to Twitter to just make sure that we haven't gotten that ownership or that injury news. We haven't. So Jalen Brunson is questionable for the Knicks. Anthony Gill, which is probably not a name we needed to start with, is questionable for the Wizards, as is Jordan Poole, as is Alex Sarr, and they're getting Kyle Kuzma back. So complicated nature going on the Washington side. Could be interesting on the Knicks side. Right now, basically Bridges, Hart, Brunson, Anunoby, and Towns are all 10% owned, and then Precious Achiuwa is somehow getting 9% ownership, which is fine. I really like the Knicks. They're much different owned now than they were on the strategy show, where Bridges and Hart really weren't pulling any ownership. Now I think they're all essentially properly owned. I'd happily take any one of them. But if Brunson ends up out, we're going to get some kind of crazy value on either Miles McBride or Landry Shamet or Cam Payne. Something's going to exist. How do you feel about the Knicks here in a clearly good spot?
Yeah, I think they'll look a lot more interesting if you get Brunson out, obviously. Just losing one more ball dominant scorer. Going to open things up for pretty much everybody. Make Towns look a little bit better, median projection wise and ceiling wise. So, definitely a key one to watch out for. But right now, I'm with the field on Towns, a little bit lower than the field on Brunson. Well, half the field on Brunson. Higher on Hart because the small forward, power forward works pretty well. I think he projects decently here. I've met 15% compared to the field's 10-ish. Everybody else, not a big factor, kind of holding hands, a little bit lighter on them. I think they look okay, but you get Brunson out, you open up so many more minutes there. So much opportunity against the Wizards is going to look better. Towns, it just feels like a Jokic slate to me, but Towns kind of low owned for a matchup with Washington. So if I'm going to prioritize one guy, he'd probably be the one. But Hart occurs naturally in my top 150 lineups. I like the Knicks. I mean, I don't really, I'm not getting a lot of them, but I like them. And I think they're probably better tournament plays if they're all going to be around, 10, 15% owned.
Who do you think starts if Brunson is out? You just assume it's McBride?
Yeah, I would think
Or do
it's
you
McBride. I would think, yeah.
I
I
could
mean,
see it being Payne.
I was gonna say it could be campaign.
If it happens to be Payne, he's point guard, shooting guard eligible in the flat 3K. So that's going to look pretty damn good at basically any minutes projection you give him. Shamit will complicate matters in that degree, but you're going to have like, I don't know, 34, 35 minutes to redistribute across these guys. It's going to create some value and really change up the makeup of the slate. It'll make someone like Misic look like that ownership will just naturally come down because he'll have a competitive guy at a similar position at a better price tag. So it will really redistribute everything. We need that news. 7 o'clock start. We should get that news during live before lock. So that is a pretty good reason to not miss the show. Do you like anybody from the Knicks more with Brunson out, like disproportionately? Like, do you want to focus on Bridges or Hart, or do you think that Towns becomes the guy after that? Is there a specific guy that isn't just getting a minutes bump that you like the most?
I think the Towns usage coming up would be the most appealing. Let me check the rates while we talk about this, but he would be the one that would come to mind me first and foremost. Obviously, campaign getting you mentioned not being the minutes bump, but I would think if he gets the opportunity, he's going to play a fractional kind of role for what Brunson represents. So I'd probably want to go there more. But I would probably favor Hart, would favor Towns. The other guys, I think, have more of a ceiling. But I really am never the biggest on playing Anunoby and Bridges that much. Like Bridges just producing so poorly on the air, under zero point 0.8 fantasy points per minute. It looks like with Brunson off the court, I'm just running the Wowie right now. Seems like the biggest boost for Towns, 1.63 fantasy points per minute. Shaman average, well, he's only played 15 minutes, never mind, but averages 1.2. Hart comes to 1.1, and Anunoby 1 flat, campaign 1 flat. A campaign start would be the one you're looking for, I think.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
yeah, Towns to me, I think would take a tier jump up, but still not be Jokic category for me.
Yeah, I mean, if you get campaign starting and you just give him something as generic as like 24 minutes, which, just off the top of my head, 21.6 fantasy points if you call him point 0.9, if you try to be a little pessimistic. 21.6 fantasy points at 3K is 7.2x your salary. That's already probably, I assume, the number one value play on the day. So you're going to get him in 24 minutes, might even be light in that scenario. And then we talk about the Wizards, who are full stop unowned. 3% to Sar, 1% to Koulibaly, 0 to everybody else. But if Jordan Poole is out, that's going to change the way all of this looks. If Sar is out, that's going to change the way all of this looks. If they're both out, that's going to really change the way the Wizards look. So I'm having a tough time figuring out what I really think this is going to end up being. Do you want to play anybody from the Wizards if they're all in?
No, honestly, I got 1% SAR, and that's enough for me here with all of them being assumed in. If they come out, I think Kuzma's minutes would still be a little bit tough to get to project to come back to where they were in the and where you'd want them to be in the mid 30s. Right now he's projected for 27-ish, so he doesn't look like a great play. If you get Poole out, you open up enough opportunity there where I could see taking a shot. But really, I think right now, just for the sake of time, like nothing looks good unless you get Poole out, having Kuzma in. They're not priced to have Kuzma in. Kuzma himself is priced down, so I think that's a tournament shot. But yeah, Sar just makes lineups because the price works. Even he doesn't look like that good of a play.
Yeah, I don't see anything if they're all in. If we get Sar out, how many minutes do you think we get out of Joval, who's 5,100 on DraftKings today?
Mm, Mid 20s, maybe like 25 ish. I think feels like about right with what he's played before, off the top of
Let's
my
see.
head.
Yeah, I'm going to take a look and see what is Joval averaging first in starts. He's had a few, right?
Yeah.
7 starts on the year, 179 minutes. So he's averaging 25 and a half. But Sar has played some of those games. So
Last
let's,
time Sar was out, he played 28 minutes and 42 seconds.
yeah. Is that the
Uh,
only one he's had with Sar out? Now, he said he's
Yeah.
okay. So he started 3 games without Sar. He's played 84 minutes, so 28 minutes a game. So if Sar ends up out, you're getting 20. Let's even be pessimistic. Let's say 26 minutes at 1.2 fantasy points per minute. That's 31.2. I mean, he's a massive value on this slate and pulling really sizable ownership. Like he immediately looks better than Mark Williams.
Yeah, I was gonna say he looks like a more stable version of Mark Williams. Where you're gonna get more predictable minutes, and the production feels maybe a little bit less flimsy than Williams has been this year.
Yeah. So that's one path on Sar being out. If Poole's out, that's probably a little bit murkier. Like people get usage bumps, but then it's, Bub Carrington sort of just himself, Brogdon sort of just himself. You can give all of these minutes to Kispert and Keyshawn George, both really low per minute guys. Champagne can maintain his minutes, assuming he's the guy that ends up getting cut with Kuzma coming back. But I don't think Poole being out is really going to unlock all that much.
Yeah, they have enough bodies. It's not a short
Yeah.
rotation, no matter who's in there.
I think if Poole's out, it's probably like Koulibaly looking the best.
Brogdon gets close to playable, but he's almost 6K, so still pretty tough on him.
Yeah, I wonder what they'd give him. I mean, he's played 30 in the past too. If you give him 30, he's gonna. I mean, I don't want to say that he's going to look better because that sounds pretty stupid. Like clearly,
He'd be like a 5X, I think, if
Yeah,
you gave him 30. Yeah.
yeah, certainly playable and compared to where he's at right now. But anyway, we need that news. That is why you guys need to be watching Live Before Lock starting at 6 o'clock, because when that comes in, it's going to change the game for you guys. And somebody's going to end up out, and we're really going to create some value. This one's less fun. Clippers. They're 4.5 point favorites in New Orleans, 218 total. And there's just like weird scattered ownership coming to the Clippers right now. Like 10% to Powell. James Harden was quite a bit more owned earlier today. He's like 10%. Zubats is like 10. KPJ is like 10. Chris Dunn is the leader in the clubhouse in ownership for the Clippers right now at 17%. And that is how my data sees it too. He's the most optimal guy I have for the Clippers, which just feels super weird. What do you want to do here? Are you just kind of like getting a little bit of a bunch of these guys?
Yeah, it's basically exactly what it is. The guy I would like to get more of that I'm not getting there is Zubac. Getting 2% of him appears to the field's 9, but it feels like given how bad the Pelicans have been, really just an awful total on their side as well. Zubac putting up 20 boards here. Feels like it's in the range of outcomes, if not in the projections itself. But he's the one I'm getting the least, getting Harden more than the field, getting 12% of him. Powell has been pretty good on the year. I've been getting him a decent amount because of that shooting guard, small forward eligibility, plays good minutes, been producing about 1.05 fantasy points minute on the year. I'm getting him in 15% of my lineups. Getting Chris Dunn also 15%. So with the field, honestly, just like a couple decent pieces for the Clippers. None of them are make or breaks like the Charlotte guys are, the Dallas guys are that we're going to talk about in a moment. But I do think that there's a lot of quality plays for the Clippers, and Clippers always play kind of an ugly brand of basketball, low pace, but the Pelicans suck enough that they could be pretty efficient. Whatever court time they get theoretically.
Now, the Clippers are like the weirdest team in the league to me. I don't really understand how they're piecing it all together, but like somehow all of these like mismatched parts fit together the right way. Like you just shake it a little bit and all the little crevices get filled. And they don't even have Kawhi Leonard yet. I'm really intrigued by what these guys look like when Kawhi gets here.
Like a late 90s basketball team is what they're going to look like.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, it's just gonna be odd. And I don't like who's leaving the rotation then.
Derrick
Coffee?
Jones. Oh, Coffee. Well, they like Coffee. Like Jones and Coffee both taking a haircut. Batum doesn't need to be in the rotation.
I mean, they signed Derrick Jones Jr. this year.
Ugh, he's such a fucking nothing. Derrick Jones always bothers me, but he does occasionally do some interesting things. He does play defense theoretically, I suppose. He's long, athletic.
Yeah, I don't know. Bring back Kawhi. What a great laugh.
Got new hair.
What'd you say?
He's got new hair. He's got like he doesn't have the long braids. He's got like shorter braids. Saw a photo on social media the other day, so don't quote me on this.
I'm not even gonna bother trying to figure out when the last picture of Kawhi Leonard got posted. Haven't seen that dude.
I'm sure they all look very different. He's got different.
Yeah, it looks like 100 different people. All right. Pelicans. They are a team that we were about to talk about. Still no Alvarado, Ingram, Zion. We did have a Q tag on Yves Missi earlier. He is available now. 10% ownership to Trey Murphy. No one else higher than 4. Trey Murphy also 18% owned on the FanDuel side. I got a hard time wanting to get to anything here for the Pels, but if I did end up on one of the starters, like they're not awful last guys in, but they don't look great.
Yeah, I'm getting my ceremonial 5% of Dejounte Murray, who I'll keep giving the ad read. He's due to shoot better one of these days at 28% from 3, 46% true shooting. The free throw shooting's still there. He's an 83% free throw shooter, so it's got to get better at some point. I don't know if the matchup with the Clippers is it, but there's going to be a day where Dejounte Murray really pays off the price tag, and I'm going to keep having 5% until he does. Column less than the field of him. Murphy getting 5% compared to the field's 10. There's better value out there now. I was getting him earlier. Shooting guard small forward helps, but not a priority play. I just think Murray's going to hit big one day. I have to say that. I don't know if it's today, but one of these days, Josh, Dejounte Murray is going to prove if he deserves all the money that he gets.
Broken clock is right twice a day, you know?
It's just like, it has to get better. Positive regression is a thing for guys. You can't keep 45% true shooting forever.
Maybe he can. I mean, Russell Westbrook's been doing it for years. Why can't Dejounte Murray?
Is his plus minus still better than Westbrook right now? I would wonder about that.
Murray?
Yeah.
Like raw plus minus?
Whichever way is going to make it look better.
All right, let me look. All right. On the season, Dejounte Murray has been the team has been 7.4 points worse when he's been on the floor, which is 3 points better than Russell Westbrook.
Okay. That's it. There we go. So that's a good sign. Yeah, Murray's not this bad, I don't think, but he's really playing terribly this year.
Okay. I mean, the Pelicans are losing at a really preposterous clip right now. The fact that they have more losses than the Wizards, given the names that are in their rotation right now, that's tough to do.
My
Zach LaVine is now questionable.
Oh, interesting. My player, nobody's care about this, but I do. He's on the Pelicans, and I'm like, was an awful team to pick because nobody can hit threes. It's like a miserable experience for my player. My guy's like a stretch 4 who can't shoot threes yet either, but really, I rebound hard. And the Pelicans just miss shots around me all day long. And I'm like, this is what it must be like in real life.
They can't buy a bucket, dude. It's crazy.
They're awful.
It's really nuts. All right. Anything else here for the Pelicans?
No, it's a bad team and down pace spot against a good defense. So they'll win. They'll win you all the money tonight, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, this will be the day that Dejounte Murray finds the fountain of youth or whatever sort of gimmick we need to say right now, and you'll have like 1% of him, and you'll rue the day that you didn't play him. Then you'll go right back to the well in 2 days, and he'll go 1 for 27 from the field.
Yeah, this game.
What you guys could do that's going to be way better than that is sign up for DraftKings Pick 6, and it's very simple. There's a link in the description of this video. If you click it and sign up, you play $5, you get... Okay, those are 2 different reads. We're going to wing this one. Play 5, Get up to $100 in pick six credits. $5 deposit, new customers only. The link is there for you guys, folks. If you guys are pick'em players, not everybody's going to be in a legal sports betting state, which sucks. Eventually, we'll get there, I hope. But sometimes you only have pick'em at your fingertips. OddsShopper could help you out for that, and DraftKings Pick 6 is right there. We have the tools to allow you to just build very quickly DraftKings Pick 6 cards at whichever size you're looking for and load them in quite quickly. Now, our data is constantly changing, so we're moving the value around throughout the day. You could just find something early in the day, lock that in, get a little bit of changes later, and have a brand new card to play. That's what we're looking at as we're taking this market-based approach to beating sports books and pick'em sites. But the easiest way for you to sign up is to just click the link in the description. Get yourself up to $100 in pick six credits. Well, that didn't take long. Zach LaVine out.
Okay. That's a fast downgrade. Honestly, I appreciate that. That's helpful.
Huh. That's one way to do it.
Is he getting traded?
No, I don't think so. It's toe. So I don't know. It'd be cool if he did. He went from 2 minutes ago. He went from 3 minutes ago in, 2 minutes ago questionable, 20 seconds ago out.
That's
one way to do it.
Like, that's a weird information flow.
Yeah, I don't know. Weird.
He's
Weird.
like, he saw somebody write it down. He's like, change that shit. I'm out.
I'm out. I wonder who starts now. That'll be what? Vooch, White, Giddey, Williams. Do they start Lonzo? Probably not, right?
No, I'm not. Yeah, I think you need a point guard out, like a real point guard.
Probably
I guess you do
Buzelis
now.
or Dalen Terry, I guess here.
Good.
Javon Carter had a renaissance a couple days ago. Maybe it's him.
We had Kobe White out when they started Lonzo last time, right? It was Kobe White and Dosunmu, and then they started Lonzo. So you probably got to have Kobe White out too to go that way.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Hopefully it's Lonzo. That'd be cool. THT season, everybody. Making that up. Watch live before lock to get a real breakdown. We already did that game. Denver Nuggets, 7.5-point favorites in Utah, 238 total. We got a lot of ownership here in this game. 30 coming into Jamal Murray, 20 coming into Nikola Jokic, 15 coming into likely starter for reasons unknown to me, Russell Westbrook, 10 to Christian Brown, and just 7 to MPJ. Now, I like most of these guys here. I think Westbrook is essentially properly owned. I think Christian Brown's properly owned. Jamal Murray looks good given the amount of minutes and the MPE that he has. Nikola Jokic is Nikola Jokic. We've got a lot of value here, and paying up for Nikola Jokic seems like a good idea on a day where there really aren't any other payups. No one else has a 5-digit salary. Towns at 9,800 is the next most expensive guy. So it's not hard to get to Jokic, and he's the best player on the planet. So please roster him if you can. And then MPJ as a GPP play looks okay to me. How are you handling Denver here?
I'm getting a lot of Jokic, getting about 35% of my lineups with Jokic, which makes me feel good. Have him a little bit higher projected than Stokastic does today. Have him at 66 fantasy points compared to 63.7, which does matter a little bit to get him into more lineups. It's probably coming at the expense of Jamal Murray, whose rates have just been down enough this year. Starting to show signs of life lately, playing more minutes. Josh pointed out this morning, playing like 40 minutes in some games. Today projected for 37.5 for Stokastic. I think he's a decent play, but I don't love the 30% ownership going his way. I'd rather have more for Jokic, have less for Murray. But Murray getting the minutes uptick up now, finally over 1 fantasy point per minute on the year. So that's a good sign for him. I think he's looking better. Russell Westbrook, I'm low on today, 11% compared to the field 16. I think he's a better real life play than a fantasy play for me today. It's Jokic or bust, I think, really is the main thing. I'm not crazy about Murray. That's a lot of Murray ownership, and he still hasn't been good this year. I think people need to maybe be aware of that.
Look, I know I went on my rant earlier today on the strategy show regarding Russell Westbrook, but the key takeaway for this needs to be DFS and real life are not the same things. There are salaries involved in this game that change up the way that people are rosterable. And he looks like a completely reasonable play today, assuming he maintains his spot in the starting lineup. That said, be prepared for him to not be very good because he's not very good. But I just want to get a bunch of Denver because Utah stinks. And this Denver team should be able to carve them up pretty well. Who slows Jokic down? Because it's not Walker Kessler. Now, people can slow down Jamal Murray, but I'm not entirely sure that's going to be Colin Sexton or Jordan Clarkson. So this is a good get-right game for Denver.
Yeah, I'm scared of having less Murray, but the upside of Jokic I think is so high on this spot because it's really not a big spread favoring Denver on the road either. Like they're not like, it's not one of those games you never predict a blowout, but like in this one in particular, I mean, you're talking about, 7.5 point spread. So pretty reasonable, almost expecting Utah to hang in this in a pretty lively way. So Jokic and Murray both in play for sure. But a third of the field being on Murray, like maybe we're buying a little bit early on that one.
A little bit. You can get him down to like 25. It would just cosmetically look better.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Utah. I'm excited to find out what Danny Ainge and company end up making this team because it feels like they're just going to punt forever. John Collins is out. Keontae George is back and probable. Colin Sexton is in. We've got 20% ownership coming into Markkanen, 20% ownership coming into Kessler, and around 10 for Keontae George and Clarkson. Minimal for Colin Sexton. What do you want to do here with these guys? Because I don't feel super awesome about 20% owned Markkanen and Kessler, but I understand why they're getting owned like that. I'm kind of a little bit more intrigued in like Colin Sexton with the MPE at minimal ownership, but there's nobody here that I love. I think they're all just either slightly over-owned or properly owned.
Yeah, I'm kind of just holding hands with the field on most of these guys. I mean, Markkanen a little bit lower on 15% for me in my top 150 compared to the field's 20% ownership. No issue with Markkanen here. I think getting John Collins out kind of helps him out a little bit there to clear things up. Really, him and Kessler both. Kessler gains and rebounds. Markkanen gains a little bit in some of those long kind of usage opportunities that Markkanen needs to just corner the market on a little bit more. So both guys are okay to me, but I am 22% on Kessler. Think he's an okay play here, going to be able to rebound as much as he wants. The matchup versus Jokic, maybe some risk of foul trouble, I guess, but he doesn't foul at too crazy from amount. Clarkson, double the field on him still, though he doesn't look like as good of a play as he did this morning when it seemed like some guys might be missing, but still projected for 28 minutes, so he looks all right. Honestly, all these guys kind of produce okay in fantasy. The matchup, the total is pretty good, like one of the highest totals on the slate. I think actually might be the highest. So I like the game environment and Utah being competitive here. Got a lot of guys to go to, fairly concentrated usage, so just kind of rotating them around feels okay.
Yeah, like those main five guys, Markkanen, Kessler, George, Clarkson, Sexton. I'm happy to rotate them in today. Like they look pretty reasonable here. And it's not like Denver's got some vaunted defense or anything like that. It's solid, but unspectacular would probably be the way that I would describe it. What are they ranked right now? 19th per dunks and threes. So yeah, solid, unspectacular. That's Utah for you. Cleveland Golden State, kind of a fun game. Cavs are 4.5 point favorites in Golden State, 230 total. Single digit ownership for everybody on Cleveland, DraftKings and FanDuel. The most is Mobley at 9, 7 to Mitchell. Everybody else is sub 5. I'm happy to get to Mitchell, Garland, and Mobley. Like those are guys that I think are always just reasonable 10%ers in your lineups, but absolutely no one stands out here for Cleveland in a pretty crappy matchup, a little bit paced down, good Warriors defense, or at least good enough Warriors defense. What do you do here with Cleveland?
Yeah, kind of just holding hands with the field / a little bit underneath on it. Getting Mitchell 3%, getting Mobley 5%. The highest stand for me is going to be pro Garland, getting 2x the field on him. I think the price tag is 7,100 for him looks pretty good. Jared Allen getting really none of here. I think Cleveland, I mean, this is the case often for them. They're appropriately priced. I think there's some upside relative to the matchup here. You're going against Golden State, not a bad total, a competitive game environment expected. But in terms of just how they project naturally, like these guys aren't must-haves. They kind of feel like tournament pieces. I would favor Garland the most, but you could take any shot on really the big three and Allen to a lesser extent, but I think the big three look okay here.
Yeah, it's like nobody just jumps off the page to me, but I don't know. I feel like I should want to get to more Cleveland. They never play the minutes that I want them to play. And when they do, it's like it's not a game that I was on. But these guys are just so locked into playing like 31 a game because they're damn good. One of the best teams in the league. Number one offense on dunks and threes, which is pretty wild to think about. But helping that Evan Mobley slowly becoming an offensive player. Needed to see it. All right. I don't know how to break down Golden State. Two guys are getting 20% ownership. Andrew Wiggins and Jonathan Kuminga. Everybody else is in single digits, including Steph at 2 and Draymond at 6. Before we hit the 220 percenters, I think Draymond is like wildly underowned for this matchup today.
I think he's appropriately owned. I got him at the same amount as the field. So I guess I get it. There's upside theoretically. Having Steph in there is going to make him produce better, but he's averaging 0.96 fantasy points per minute. He's almost 6K. He's getting 30 minutes. I don't know, he feels like a classic kind of 5X-ish guy that to me seems appropriate.
So he has played 34 and 35 minutes in his last 2 games.
Okay.
What if they're finally consolidating this rotation now and he's going to be out there causing havoc against this Cleveland front court for 34 minutes? For him to be 6% owned in this spot, I'm really surprised to see it. It's not like he has bad positional eligibility. He's got power forward center. It's not like he's some void of fantasy points. You know, let's call it 0.95. I'm intrigued by the fact that he's been playing increased minutes in these last 2 games. And if that is the plan of attack, and if this one is competitive and 4.5 point line probably should be, I think he's underrepresented today.
I don't know which havoc he can create against Cleveland. Like that would be my concern point. But the minutes thing's a fair point if he's going to be getting more and that's sustainable. It just is it sustainable or is it just mostly a symptom of how things are moving around with some guys coming in and out of the rotation? Would be my guess. But yeah, I mean, if
Like
you're right about that, because wouldn't that suck a little bit from Kuminga and Wiggins production then? And they're
So this is a serious question for me. How do you see the difference between Draymond and Kuminga? Because this is a 4-to-1 ownership gap right now. And I have them equal.
So I have Kuminga projected better by 3.4 points. I have Wiggins better projected by 1.4 than Draymond. So, with Kuminga, like the usage is there for him. I think that's sort of the main thing. Wiggins, I have the tougher time with. I mean, he's been a higher usage guy than Draymond, obviously, but like that can float wherever. Kuminga, at least we know, is going to try to get his shots up, and they're going to kind of allow it because of what the needs kind of match up on both sides for him to keep gunning, basically, at this point.
Are they going to allow it? Every time we think they're going to allow it, Jonathan Kuminga comes out here and plays 20 minutes. He's back in Steve Kerr's shit list. Like, it's not like Draymond's going anywhere. I don't know. I'm fascinated by the relationship between those 3 guys because I just can't understand why 2 of them are 20% and 1 of them is 6. If Draymond were like a 0.8 fantasy point per minute guy, I could get why that disparity starts to happen. But these guys are not all that dissimilar on a per minute basis.
It's also too that like they need. I mean, how much Podziemski takes off? I don't really. It's like it's not a lot, but like they need shots to fill. Like if you're projecting it, like you need shots to fill in Podziemski's missing shots. Draymond's not going to take those missing shots, whereas Kuminga and Wiggins theoretically should and healed to a lesser extent, and Schroeder. I think that's how I would view it, but I get what you're saying. Like I think it's just the production's a production. Draymond doesn't produce as much as these guys right now.
Yeah. Keep your eye on this one, guys. It's intriguing. It's intriguing. Do you want any Steph at 2% owned? Because that kind of feels a little light as well if you want to pivot in large field GPPs.
Yeah, I heard you call that out in the strategy show this morning, and I was like, that's a really good point to make when he is that low owned. Competitive game here. Again, Golden State only a 4-point dog at home, and that's the kind of game where you could see Steph have an outlier and be that late night hammer. 3 games going late, but that's one of them. So yeah, I don't hate it as a concept. He certainly doesn't project as well as anybody else in that price range. You have all the center options, a lot of ways you can go, but just pure tournament option, the guy could shoot him into the game and overcome a tough Cleveland defense. That's Steph. He's been shitty lately, which I think is maybe makes him more appealing for a tournament.
The minutes have been there though. 34, 35, 36, 35. One of these days he's just going to drop like 9 threes in one of those situations and you're going to be pretty happy to be there. But if he's going to be 2% owned, that just feels like a guy that I'm really willing to take a shot on. Like him in GPPs. I like this Golden State team in GPPs. That should be my takeaway here. Anything else for these Warriors?
No, I mean, I'm a little bit above the field on Kuminga and Wiggins right now. I think, to take Josh's point, and maybe if you're to flatten that out a little bit and just shave some ownership away, spread it to Draymond Green, I think that'd be reasonable. Because these guys are coming up a lot, and it doesn't feel like they're the most, locked in games because Podziemski's not there, but they are kind of getting it naturally through that prism.
Should we be looking at Dennis Schroeder? I guess we didn't really say anything there. He has not been off to the most illustrious start.
Mm.
I
Just
don't.
deferring a lot.
He's
I
fine.
don't I don't think he's really a play. He's okay. I mean, I have him at 9%, Fields at 6, so if I'm
Okay.
gonna defend him, I guess that's it. But like he's not even taking the same opportunity he had in Brooklyn, like when he had a full roster.
Yeah.
His rates I think are just a little bit too high overall. So I have him in he was awful on Friday where he had all the
Yeah.
opportunity in the world. I don't know what the deal is with that.
Not good. All right, 1,500 of you in here, 139 likes. That is disrespectful to the channel. If you're here and you haven't hit the thumbs up yet, please do so. We don't want the live before lock crew to get here and find out that they don't have a bunch of likes on the video. They want to come in with their spirits lifted via piles and piles of likes. So hit that thumbs up if you can. Well, this one's tricky to talk about. Let's make sure that we didn't get any injury news in the past couple seconds. We have not. Philadelphia 76ers are 6.5 point favorites in Portland, 222 total. A lot of Q tags here. Andre Drummond, questionable. Joel Embiid, questionable. Eric Gordon, questionable. Kyle Lowry, questionable. No KJ Martin, no Jared McCain. For Portland, Banton, questionable. Kamara, questionable. Jeremy Grant, questionable. Time Lord, questionable. If Joel Embiid is in, how do you feel about him?
He's an okay play. I have to do the thing where I ignore his rates for this year and give him the previous rates. You have to coddle Joel Embiid even in making projections, like you do if you're I'm on your DFS or your NBA team rather. But I feel like for Embiid, okay play. I'd rather have Jokic. I'd rather have Towns, especially if you get Brunson out. But I think he looks fine in the spot. Soft matchup. Embiid, what we've seen lately is big return versus Charlotte. Guy loves a soft matchup, wants softest opponents possible. So I'm okay with him here. I got 10%, Fields at 15. That's fine by me.
Jake Swale says, Scoot and Klingon. You should really go out of your way to not be clicking Donovan Klingon's name today. I think we could do better than guys that play 14 minutes a night. Just thinking. Okay. If Joel Embiid is out, how do you want to handle Maxey and Paul George?
Have to take a pretty big jump up. I think Paul George at his price tag is going to look pretty good. 7,500 shooting guard, small forward. Maxey gets a similar bump up. I think he looks borderline playable now. I'm not getting there as much as the field, but I would get there a lot more if Embiid were out. I think they're both better plays by a wide margin. Maxey going to probably pick up more ownership because he's already projected for 11% as it is with Embiid projected in. But I think Paul George and Maxey become equally good plays, and I'd be happy to have them.
I think I'd lean Maxey, even though George has the better price tag and the better positioning. Because I'm not entirely sure that George would pick up all that much more playing time. And I think we'd be live for Maxey to just lock into 40 since he's playing like 38 plus no matter what. So I think that I would prefer to get to Maxey in that scenario. The real questionable part then becomes, is Andre Drummond available? And if not, how much of Gershon Yabusele do you want to play? Power forward center 4,500 with the possibility that Embiid and Drummond aren't in.
Yeah, if Embiid and Drummond are out, Yabusele looks great. If just Embiid's out and Drummond we know is going to start, I'd feel pretty comfortable about him having a good, potential double-double spot, even though the points part of the double-doubles have been hard for him lately. The rebound part's still definitely there and should be there versus Portland. But yeah, I mean, if Yabusele gets full run, he looks great. If it's Drummond starting, Yabusele an interesting pivot, but hard to love that. I think Drummond at under 5K. 4,600 price tag, like Drummond would be a smash play if he's going to get the start here. So, yeah, Embiid status, one of the most important. You think Embiid's not playing, right, based on the total?
Yeah, so I have Philly quite a bit. So here's the problem. I have Philly quite a bit higher. I got the line at like 9.5. But there's so many Q tags on the Portland side too that I think there's a lot to like really dig into to find out if this is just being caused from one side or the other. But I am leaning towards no Embiid here.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the spread based on how Philly's been this year, like this doesn't seem like a surprising spread for me if Embiid were in, but your model's got a pretty good hit rate on it. So, seems like an important one that we're not going to know before the slate locks.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see where it ends up after all is said and done when I reproject everything once we know the news. How lined up do we get? Weird. It's weird. But yeah, I mean, we have, let's see, based on my projections, 138 minutes are questionable for this one out of the 480 that would happen. So like 25% of this game is a shoulder shrug right now. My recommendation, honestly, don't be afraid to try to get a little bit more of Philly and Portland. There's three games at 10 o'clock. You're going to have plenty of different late swap opportunities between 7 and 8, between 8 and 9, and then between those 10 o'clock games. So that will give you a little bit more functionality if one or two of these guys end up out on both teams. You'll already have some allocation there. So we might not know specifically who to get, but you'll be able to fix those problems at 10 o'clock, given there's three games. And then we close it out with the Dallas Mavericks, sort of taking on the Sacramento Kings. Mavs are 6.5-point dogs in Sacramento, 225 total. This looked a little bit different earlier today, but unfortunately, we got the news Kyrie Irving also out for this one, joining Luka Doncic on the sidelines. And we still don't officially know the status of Derek Lively, which is another pretty important piece of this bad boy. Najee Marshall also out for this one, still serving his suspension. And that is leading us to get to 60% of Spencer Dinwiddie, 30% of Klay Thompson, 20% of Quentin Grimes, and scattered amounts of PJ Washington, Derek Lively, and Jaden Hardy. So let's just put this one to bed quickly. How much of Spencer Dinwiddie are you getting to?
93% Spencer Dinwiddie for me is going to be the number. So going above the field here. Frankly, it was coming up that way with Stokastic's projection as it was. I am high projected at 37.8 compared to the 35 projection he's getting from Stokastic. He's been good whenever these guys have been off the court when he can get his old roll back, averaging 1.1 fantasy points per minute this year with Luka and Kyrie off the court, about 350 possessions. So not quite that 550 mark we want to get to, but I think a good enough sample size to feel okay about the rates and where they're going to be. Everybody else here looks like a one-ish fantasy point per minute guy. So Dinwiddie getting the big bump up. He's a core play. I think there's two plays on the slate I consider must-haves. That's Miles Bridges and Dinwiddie. So yeah, Dinwiddie. It's weird. He was so bad for so long, and give him an opportunity, and he's useful, I think, enough in this Dallas rotation.
I legitimately don't know how he's playing this year. No, he sucks still. He's dog shit. 54% true shooting. He's shooting 42% at the rim. That is first percentile. No one shoots worse at the rim, essentially. 33% from three. Doesn't get a rebound ever. Doesn't turn it over, I guess. He's like a slightly below average guy that really sucks on offense.
But it gets a lot of usage when those guys are off the court. Like if it were Jaden
but
Hardy
he's
starting,
5,200 and about to play 35 minutes.
Yeah, like I think he's like a 7x-ish value as it is. So good on this slate. I'm in with it.
Yeah, very different than real life skill set. Spencer Dinwiddie is playing this game without Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving today. He looks amazing. Probably the best of anybody on the slate. You got to play this dude. But yeah, not a big fan in real life. Klay or Grimes? What's the preference?
I have more Grimes, actually getting 45% Grimes compared to 12% Klay. One thing that jumped out a little bit is Klay's rates actually go down a little bit, and it's not a big enough sample size to feel great about it. But Klay's usage goes down. Actually had to keep his rates flat because he knocked his projection down too much. Gets less usage, a little bit less assist upside too. I think because when Luka and Kyrie aren't out, it's just guys kind of looking for their shot without any attempt at all to really set him up in the way he needs. He is playing more minutes. I know Josh pointed out on the strategy show, and I looked it up. It's like, wow, played 34 minutes the other day. The minutes have come up, so more opportunity, but he's just like cement boots at this point. He can't do anything to get his own shot. So if they set him up, it'll work. If they don't, he's going to fail. And I think he probably doesn't get set up well enough.
His career win-loss record, though, will keep him in the lineup for ages upon ages. You want to roll the dice on Jaden Hardy?
With the minutes projection being where it is and his price tag, it's hard to love. I got 3%. I like Jaden Hardy. If he got the spot start, I guess it wouldn't be the most shocking thing in the world, but Dinwiddie's been ahead of him. I think it's Dinwiddie. If you want to fade Dinwiddie, though, just go into Hardy, and Hardy somehow getting more minutes. Sacramento blows him out. Hardy's probably out there more than Dinwiddie would be.
I don't know how much he could take on, right? He got some run, right? What did he get last time out?
He's been around
He got
20.
to 17 minutes.
Yeah.
I do wonder how much they're willing to play him because he was missing for quite a bit. But looks like a decent enough value right now. I wouldn't like 10% of him makes a lot of sense, and there's certainly some minute ceiling to if it's not going well for Spencer Dinwiddie, Jaden Hardy gets hot, they leave him out there. I don't think they have any specific loyalties right now. Thoughts on Gafford if Lively is out?
He'll look like a much better play. I mean, I loaded him in the other day when we got that late breaking news of Lively being out. Price tag for Gafford's come up enough now. He's 5K, so you're not getting quite as much of a value, but still averaging 1.2 fancy points per minute. I believe played 28 minutes on Friday with Lively out, so got a good amount of run there. No reason to think he wouldn't. Then Powell becomes the backup. I don't see want to play Powell very much.
No.
So Gafford versus Sacramento, I think would be a really good play, but only if Lively's out. If Lively's in, really can't play either right now, I don't think.
No. You want to land on anything else from Dallas? Anything we haven't said?
No, I mean, PJ Washington got 30% in the sim as well. Have him pretty well projected here. I think a little bit over projected because he has been under 1 fancy point per minute in the smaller sample size without Luka and Kyrie, but decent price tag, power forward. He's one of the guys I like, and I think comes out well in the sims, too, from what I saw at the Stokastic sim I ran, both with my projections and without.
The new look Sacramento Kings, headed up by Doug Christie for incompetent reasons, are not pulling all that much ownership. 7 to De'Aaron Fox, 13 to Sabonis, 8 to Murray, 0 to DeMar DeRozan, and 1 to Malik Monk. Do you want anything here? I think Fox, Sabonis, and Murray look okay, and their ownership makes some sense, but one of these days, maybe Keon Ellis gets random minutes out of nowhere, but I trust nothing for this team, and I assume they get worse, not better, now that they made that coaching change.
Yeah, Fox, I think, looks pretty good. Both Fox and DeRozan played about 40 minutes in the Christie debut. I don't know what the rationale was. Sabonis played less, but he was coming off that illness, so wasn't even available to take the call when they were saying the team was calling about Mike Brown getting fired because how sick he was. So maybe he gets his minutes up here. But if Fox and DeRozan are going to have a shot at playing 40, obviously this Dallas team maybe doesn't put up enough of a fight to keep them in there for 40 minutes, but I think those guys maybe get a little more interesting. Fox, though, as it is, projects pretty well. I'm getting him about 10%. Less Sabonis getting 5% of him. DeRozan getting none of. But if you were to give him 40 minutes, he'd look better. But I think it's Fox, Keegan Murray here. I'm lower on Sabonis, though. I have to say that.
Good riddance to this trash team. Who needs them, honestly?
I
Team
like
Mike
them.
Brown.
The beam's fun. Like the beam. Hey, shoots in the sky.
Well, they don't like the beam all that frequently. Currently, Dunks and Threes has him projected with the 4th lowest odds of making the playoffs in the West, behind Utah, the Pelicans, and the Portland Trailblazers. Everybody else ahead of them right now. Kudos, Kings. Kudos.
They're going to lose Fox, too.
There are other players on their team they should try to lose first, but they are really bad at evaluating talent, so they'll probably ship out the best one again and keep around all the trash like they've done before. Homer James says Josh is the biggest troll of all time. It's not a troll when it's true, but I know you do love to gargle some Kings from time to time, so I'm not surprised that you're not happy. Spags, tell the people where to find you.
You can follow me at Chris Spags and check out my NBA channel at Splash Play NBA before I do these streams. Every Monday to Friday at 4 p.m. at Splash Play NBA, I do run through my projections, compare them to stochastic stuff, run some sims, look at some prop markets. So good NBA video to get your feet wet before you hop into the big deals that go on here on the Deeper Dive and Live Before Lock.
There we go, everybody. Live Before Lock coming up next, and we still have a bunch of news to get to. You don't want to miss any of it because this is an interesting slate. Lots of late swap opportunities. The place to be is right here on this stream. Coming up next, Live Before Lock.
All right, Stokastic, here we go. It's your old pal Emac coming to you on a Monday evening here as we get ready for some NBA. We've got some NFL. We've got question marks all over the place. Fortunately for the NFL, you're going to get Laffy and I think, is it Gajeski handling that one?
Correct.
So enjoy trying to parse out what's going on in Detroit. We have our own mess here with all sorts of NBA news coming down the pipeline. Surprising news with Zach LaVine out. I didn't think he was going to sit today. Tons of people out in Charlotte. And then we have some news that we're still waiting on in the later games. So there's going to be ample late swap opportunity. I'm sure you have heard that. But since I am filling in for Eric Lindquist, I am obligated to mention late swap because that is a way of life for him. It's kind of like a religion. But anyway, real quick, Greg, for Charlotte, no LaMelo Ball, no Brandon Miller, no Cody Martin. They all missed the last game. They're missing this one. Josh Giddey is in. Ayo Dosunmu out. Josh Giddey actually had a triple-double in his last game. We just found out that Zach LaVine is going to be out. Jalen Smith was questionable. He has been ruled available. Kyle Kuzma from the top ropes out of nowhere. I didn't even know if he was ever going to play again for the Wizards who are trying to tank. I'm sure that means Jordan Poole is going to sit, though he is questionable at this point. Alex Sarr also questionable. He's dealing with an illness. Jordan Poole dealing with a sore hip. You have most of the usuals are still out for New Orleans. Isn't that kind of weird? Like the New Orleans Saints and the New Orleans Pelicans are each missing like their entire starting rosters. Kind of weird. We know that Aaron Gordon is going to be out for a few more games, so we could see Russell Westbrook starting again. He has for the last couple. What else do we have? John Collins is out. I think that hits the main ones. Oh, Kyrie, that was a bit of a surprise. He's out as well because, he doesn't want to play without Luka, I guess. So he's out. There was one other one I wanted to hit on. Oh, Podziemski. I didn't realize Podziemski was going to be out. He's actually going to miss the next week. He suffered I think it was a groin strain, but he is going to be out. And then we're waiting on Philadelphia. Who knows what is up with Joel Embiid. The line looks like he might be out, but I don't know anymore because we have Portland also missing a whole bunch of people. Portland mailing it in already. It's a tradition unlike any other. Did I miss anything there, Greg?
Just, Joel Embiid question. Most importantly, the guys who are questionable: Joel Embiid, Jalen Brunson, Jordan Poole, Derek Lively, Alex Sarr, Jeremy Grant, as well as Tumani Kamara. I know you hit on the guys who are out, but just wanted to reiterate the players who are questionable.
Good times. Good times. What is the piece of news that you are most excited to find out? Do you really think Brunson is going to play tonight? I guess is a good starting point. We should know here.
So I tend to think Brunson's going to play. It's kind of been the Knicks' MO, especially under Thibodeau. Guys play big minutes. But the good thing is we don't really have to make any presumptions here because that is a game that locks at 7 p.m. Eastern time. So we're going to be knowing that news right at the start of the slate, kind of like the Chicago Bulls. We found out Zach LaVine was out because it's one of the first locking games. So Jalen Brunson, I tend to think he plays, but I don't think we really have to make too many guesses on that front. Jordan Poole just ruled out. So there we go. We got Sarr is in, Poole is out. I know you had mentioned there that you thought that Jordan Poole was going to sit. So there you go. One internet point for you. There you go, Emac. Good job. This is why we upgraded Eric's for today. And
according to DraftKings, that is worth 1 crown today. Tomorrow or 2 days, it's going to take 2 internet points to equal 1 crown.
There we go. Yeah, harder and harder to hit the different Onyx and Diamond and whatnot with the new tier system. But there you go. It's good to see. That's what you do shows. You get rewarded with those extra tier credits there. So I just finished running a sim. Now I'm gonna have to wait for Jordan Poole to be taken out and to rerun everything again. But to answer your question about which piece of news I am most, how'd you frame it, most excited for?
Most excited, yeah. What's going to open things up for you? I mean, you could get the Knicks with even more minutes. That seems kind of fun. You've got the Derek Lively news could open up more of everything because they've got some guys who are suspended, but that could really solidify the likes of Daniel Gafford and PJ Washington. So Joel Embiid throws a wrench into everything. I happily took the under on, I think it was 28 points for Tyrese Maxey here. Yeah, now I guess he's probably going to get that if Embiid's out. But hey, we have all sorts of excitement going on.
Yeah, so I mean, it just kind of has to be Joel Embiid looking at the landscape of the injuries right now, because if he's out, there's a big trickle down effect. Like, we haven't really seen a really big Paul George game on a main slate the entire season, and it's for multiple reasons. He hasn't played well this year. Also, he missed a bunch of time at the start of the year. But if Joel Embiid was to not play today, I think this would be a prime spot for Paul George as well, of course, to get more usage over to Tyrese Maxey. So if Joel Embiid was to be ruled out, that's what creates the most mayhem for the night games. And I think that's generally what's going to benefit us the most around here, being that, we're pretty knowledgeable people. We know how to make swaps. We've got the tools on the site to enable us to do it as well. So I want Joel Embiid to end up sitting. I hope it ends up coming out after lock. I don't actually know what's going to happen there, because he's somebody who, you go look at him on the injury report and it's like knee, foot, broken face. So there's so many different ailments. You never know what it is on a given night that might end up bothering Joel Embiid. So I think that just about every game we have to consider him questionable.
No, and that's fair. In between the myriad of injuries, and some of them actually significant, and then others trifling. It's hard to get a read on him, because he does seem like he would want to play, but I don't know, starting to get vibes that maybe that's not the case anymore for a lot of guys in the NBA. Kind of weird. Looking at the guards here, we have let's see, the projections were just updated about 8 minutes ago. So, excuse me, Spencer Dinwiddie coming in as a phenomenal option at this point, 54%. He is 5,200 on DraftKings. He's the third most popular play. Same goes on FanDuel, where he's 54%. Is he kind of leading the way for you at point guard here as we embark upon our DFS travels?
Yeah, with Luka and Kyrie both out, and then like you mentioned, the Kyrie news kind of came out of nowhere. It's not like Luka's been out for a minute, but it's not like Kyrie was even questionable earlier today. So Kyrie kind of gets ruled out of left field. Dinwiddie was somewhat priced up for the absence of Luka, but he was definitely not priced up for the absence of both of them. So Spencer Dinwiddie, really, really strong option. He's not min price or anything like that, but even this price tag in like the low mid range, it is $5,200 on DraftKings, and then the FanDuel price on Spencer Dinwiddie, flipping over to the FanDuel side, is, let's see, what was it on Dinwiddie, just so I don't misspeak. Yeah, Dinwiddie is the same exact, I could have just guessed the same one. So $5,200 on FanDuel, $5,200 on DraftKings. He's the best points per dollar play on the slate with Luka and Kyrie both out.
All right, and I just did looked at NBA Wowie over there to add more funds. Dinwiddie in just 170 minutes this year without Irving and Doncic, he gets up to about 1.1, 1.15 fantasy points per minute. But the key is there's also going to be more minutes available tonight, so you're kind of getting the double effect here from that. Another guy that was our earlier chalk of the day, he still is, but we could start to see some things move around. It's going to be Baz Misic. He is an interesting guy when he starts. When he doesn't start, it's kind of a hot hand approach. It sort of depends what's going on with the opposing teams and how much the team really seems to care. So he was a Euroball guy, came over a couple years ago. I think this is his second season in the league. In the 9 starts that he has had this season, he is averaging 30.5 minutes, almost 12 field goal attempts, 13 points, 3.5 boards, 6 assists, and half of a steal. The other thing you want to remember is the upside. There isn't really a lot of upside. In his 30 starts, he has scored more than 20 NBA points, 20 NBA points, just 5 times. So he is a guy that doesn't always look for a shot. And when we saw him in games last year, there was entire spans where he just wasn't taking shots. He was making the extra pass, doing everything needed. So he is someone that I think is a little bit dangerous. And then the other guy I wanted to put caution on was Salon, his teammate. He's a young guy, came out of France, played in their, I can't think of the name of the top A-League over there in France, but he was there. He's 19 years old. The challenge with him is, even if we look at his per 36 rates, it's 9.3 minutes, 7.8 rebounds, and 2.1 assists. So he's another guy that those very popular. I think he's going to slide back down a little bit as we get some more value here. But those are just two that I wanted to call out that were just roaring values this morning until we started getting other people ruled out. But these are things you want to think about, because just because someone's cheap and looking good, you got to understand there's a difference between median projection and how much upside they have on that range versus lack of a floor completely. And both those guys have a lack of a floor. They're going to get minutes, but they could be empty minutes.
Yeah, and we're going to want to reserve at least some space in our lineups for the event that Joel Embiid gets ruled out later. There's going to be pieces that we just can't really avoid, though. One good thing that is going to help us out, Dallas is in the last locking game of the entire slate. So my most rostered player, which I assume is going to be the case for a lot of other people watching as well, it's the aforementioned Spencer Dinwiddie. So I get a lot of exposure to Spencer Dinwiddie. I get exposure to Klay Thompson. There are other players from Denver that I also get, like Jamal Murray shows up a bunch in the Sims. So I do think that I have a pretty good amount of flexibility already built into my lineups here. There are players that I don't think we could get away from in the early going, but I also still think that the best value on the slate, even as is right now, it's in general in the later locking games, with the exception being like Micic and then Miles Bridges as well. Two guys benefiting from the absence of LaMelo Ball as well as Brandon Miller.
All right. The guy that was standing out for me that I still like is Jamal Murray. Without Gordon there, he gets some more shots. He also, not that he gets more touches on offense. He's still battling Jokic for the assists, but it allows him to also consolidate more as the secondary scorer. So Jamal Murray is someone I don't want to lose sight of in this whole kerfluffle that will happen as we get a little bit closer to lock. And then same thing with Josh Giddey. What is your read on Josh Giddey? Great fantasy player, not so great real life NBA player is kind of where I'm landing here. And Mr. Inconsistent, I guess. I was hoping for more. He had such promise his first year, and then it just regressed.
Yeah, so Josh Giddey is in a better spot in the absence of Zach LaVine as well as Ayo Dosunmu, mostly because his minutes are short up now. Where earlier on, he's really been a terrific fantasy producer throughout his career. The problem, like you mentioned, D-Mac, is that he's not the best real-life player. He got totally phased out of OKC's playoff rotation. And then even with the Bulls, who are not a good team this year, there are games where Spencer Dinwiddie, despite having good fantasy games, he just ends up playing like 20 to 22 minutes because either poor defense or he's not knocking down shots and it's hurting floor spacing. But when you're taking multiple backcourt players like LaVine and Dosunmu off the court, then you're just getting a much safer minutes projection for Josh Giddey. He played 29 and a half minutes last game. You don't get very many games where he's going to play like 40 or anything like that, but around 30 is a much safer bet for Josh Giddey today than it typically would be. He's not one of the most popular players on the slate. He's around 10% owned. I think that's more or less warranted. I'm right around in line with the field with Giddey as of now.
All right. Any other guards that are standing out to you, maybe from a raw points perspective here?
Well, first, let's see. Was there an update on the Wizards in our projections? I want to see if we have not.
We have not.
That'll be up soon. Sorry, what was the question, Emac?
How are you feeling about some raw points coming from any of the guards?
Yeah. So one thing that's kind of interesting about this slate as well, I'm not getting a ton of exposure to the pay up options because some of the better value options that we do have, like Dinwiddie, they're more so in the mid range as opposed to being like the 3,000 or 3,500 punt plays. So I don't have much exposure to any of the spend up options. The one I have the most of is Jokic, and that's 27% of him. Maybe whenever we run things with Jordan Poole being out, maybe that helps benefit him a little bit to where there's more value, where it's easier to get up to him. But I'm not really getting too much of the most expensive pay up options. In turn, instead, it's like the secondary pay up option. So players like Jamal Murray, who I mentioned before, he shows up a good amount in the Sims. It's $7,700. Miles Bridges, it's $7,300 against the Bulls, with the Hornets missing some of their other key players. That to me is more where I'm spending up of sorts. Now, the ways this could change if Joel Embiid is ruled out, although Maxey and Paul George, these would also kind of be guys who are not super high spend up options, but they would be coming more into play if Joel Embiid is ruled out. And then the other one who's actually an expensive player who, if the news ends up breaking, we should get this news in like 12 minutes or so. If we find out that Jalen Brunson isn't going to play, then Cat would show up in a bunch of lineups for me. But as of right now, as far as expensive guards go, it's Jamal Murray, and I think he's the only one who's above 7K that I have any reasonable amount of exposure to.
Yeah, that works. I see we have a super chat here from a longtime member, 48 months as a member here, 45 months as a member. Says, hi, EMAC, big fan here. Can you give me your exotic play of the day? That is from one Jordan D. Klein here. So, I mean, the guys I like the best, it's going to be Nikola Jokic. I don't know how exotic that is because he has a 15-point median projection advantage over everybody else. We have all this value at the guards. I think people are going to be heading in that direction, but there is some opportunity cost here because we have Karl-Anthony Towns, we have Domantas Sabonis, though he is power forward eligible on FanDuel. But as far as exotics, I believe it's going to be Jokic or Sabonis for me.
I don't. Were the people able to hear EMAC there? Because we had the animation running and you talked over it. So.
Oh,
right.
Good. Oh, there's sound on this one?
Yeah. Oh, we've got sound, we've got graphics, we've got the whole deal. So I don't know if they were hearing you and the music at the exact same time, or if. I don't know exactly.
We don't get this kind of production on Saturdays, Greg. Come on.
I'll tell you, I was watching and I was just letting it play out. I was like, well, this is wrong, but this is entertaining to me.
Oh, Nikola Jokic. 15-point fantasy median projection, better than anybody else. He's your number one. Sabonis, exotic, number two.
All right. So for myself, I mean, when you get a super chat from somebody like, so why does YouTube say 4 years? What do we need to count this in months for? That aside, for myself, it's kind of hard for Micic to not be the guy for the white player I want to be getting the most exposure to, the most exotic of exotic guys out there. So Micic he finally had a good game as chalk not all that long ago, where we had, which was the slate? I think it was the one against Philly. Yeah, it was the game against Philly where he was super popular. He was $4,200, ended up putting up 26.2 fantasy points. And in Micic, he's a really good fantasy producer, but he just doesn't get the playing time or the usage when the team is fully healthy. The good news for him is that the team is very rarely fully healthy. There's oftentimes that LaMelo Ball's out. There's a lot of times that Brandon Miller's been out. And when Micic is starting and he's the primary point guard, he's generally played really well this year, other than the times that he was chalk. He finally came through as a chalk play last time, but the first couple of times he was chalk, there was his two worst games of the entire season. If you look at all of his other games as a starting point guard, you had, let's see, what is he averaging? He has north of like mid-20s fantasy points in just about all of his starts this season, with the caveat being the couple where we all played him and he kind of shit the bed. But if you look at Micic overall for the season, he is doing this as a starter. So he has now made 9 starts. He's playing 30.5 minutes in those starts, and he's averaging just under 30 fantasy points. 27.5 is the exact mark. So if you consider the price point on Micic, and then also the fact that he has the upside to score around 35 to 40 fantasy points, he's another guy who's a good piece of chalk. That's going to be my exotic play of the night.
Fair enough. That works out. We do have, Brunson is in. So that kind of dampens a little bit of the enthusiasm here for the Knicks. What did that, they're 12.5-point favorites. What did that slide down to? Did it get below 10 today?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. It wasn't
Okay.
something
I didn't know
I
if that was one
paying
you were
all that
watching.
close attention
Yeah.
to. I would assume that most books and people just assumed Brunson was going to play, and it probably didn't massively move the line by more than like half a point or anything like that. I would think anyway.
All right. So some in chat, Slim Lancaster says still playing Karl-Anthony Towns. Yeah, he should tear up the Washington front court.
Yeah.
Most centers should, but he is.
To be clear, this doesn't make Cat unplayable or anything like that. It's just the difference between him being a guy who I have in like 15 to 20% of lineups with Brunson in, or if Brunson was out, he was going to be somebody who was probably going to be in like 50 to 60% of my lineups.
Yeah, it's just divvying up Brunson's usage to those guys. They're still, it's Tom Thibodeau. They're still gonna get more minutes than they probably should, so they can break down right around the end of March. Perfect timing, as always.
By the way, Mac, we have a projections update in for the Washington Wizards now, and nobody looks good. We actually don't have a single player on DraftKings even projected for a 5x value. If you look at Bilal Coulibaly, he has the highest projection on the team. That's at 31.5 fantasy points at $6,500. Relative to salary, the best value at SAR, and that's at 27.84 fantasy points at $5,600. So nothing is really notably standing out from the Wizards here, which I guess makes sense when you consider that Kyle Kuzma's back. So he's going to be taking on a lot of the usage that Jordan Poole would otherwise have. And then also, because this team has been banged up a little bit as of late, these guys are more expensive than they would normally be anyway. Coulibaly $6,500, Brogdon's $5,900, SAR's $5,600. We've got Bub Carrington is $5,500. And now on the FanDuel side of things, yeah, pretty much the same deal. Carrington is at $4,600 on FanDuel, so that actually does make him a pretty good option over there. But beyond him, I mean, Brogdon's $5,800, SAR $6,300, Coulibaly is $6,600. So Carrington, $4,600, but specific to FanDuel becomes a pretty good option. Nothing that I really love on DraftKings in the absence of Jordan Poole from the Wizards.
All right, let's move on to forwards here. Miles Bridges looking incredibly popular, 53% on DraftKings. He's all the way up to 80% on FanDuel. He is $6,900 over there. Some would say that is nice. He also has small forward and power forward eligibility there, which allows him to get into a couple different spots. So that makes him interesting. Who else is popping up for you on the power forwards and small forwards here? Because it's looking pretty thin.
Yeah, so small forward, one that is a pretty clear gainer from the Mavericks situation, Klay Thompson. So Klay is not having the greatest of which makes sense, right? I mean, he's a guy now, he's in his mid-30s. He has a torn Achilles in his history. He's got a torn ACL. So he's still a competent real-life player, but he's nowhere near the all-star level player that he used to be. But now you got a situation where there's all kinds of usage available in Dallas, and a lot of that is just going to fall to Klay Thompson. It's a little scary because he's very, very scoring dependent. It's not like you're going to get a game from Klay Thompson where it's like, hey, look, he wasn't making his shots today, but he added some defensive stats, assists, and rebounds. That you're going to be dependent on Klay Thompson knocking down shots. But considering the amount of usage that's available for Dallas, I do think of him as the best small forward option on the slate.
All right. Who do you think it's the smooth moves that he has? The supple shooting motion? Is that all of that? Would that be for Phil Senzik? Would that be your Jergens lotion play of the day?
Is it sponsored now?
But sponsored by Phil Senzik.
It is, yeah, because Phil Senzik did say, who is Emac's smooth Jergens play of the night. So Emac, you take it however you want. Also, is Jergens a brand?
It's a brand lotion. So I've been told.
Does it make a difference if it's Jergens versus regular for you?
Well, it's more fun to say Jerkin with Jergens, I guess.
All right, fair enough. Who's your Jergens lotion play? Who's going to put the lotion?
The best lotion is kind of that strawberry scented lotion. And you guys, that strawberry vanilla, where you can smell that in those darkened rooms, the smoky areas where there's poles and ladies dancing. So clearly, it is James Harden. It's your Jergens lotion play of the day.
Do I have Harden exposure? Let's see. No, not really. Very contrarian option though. Sub 10% ownership to James Harden. Let's see. For myself, who is somebody that is going to put the ball in the bucket for me, hopefully today? I think Russell Westbrook remains underpriced as well as underutilized by the field. We've only got him pulling 16% ownership. Like you mentioned at the top with Aaron Gordon out, he has continued to start for the Denver Nuggets. And Russell Westbrook, even if he's, obviously a shell of what his former self used to be, he still plays extremely hard. He also, at least for what my expectations were, he's exceeded them in Denver. A lot of that's just because my expectations were incredibly low for him. but he's had some good games here and there. He's still a good fantasy producer when he's out on the court, and he's getting the minutes now as well. So Russell Westbrook, I think he's a reasonable contrarian option at $6,300. 16% ownership by the field, and I'm about double on him right now.
Right. Let's see, the chat did like that a little bit. So hey, if I'm ever on again on a weekday, you can fire that one up, Phil Senzik. It was interesting the other night when we did the show on Saturday that there was such a vacancy at small forward. And we thought it was kind of because the slate, there's more teams playing today, and it still seems to be a similar issue, unless of course you're going with some of these dodgy plays here, like Salon. I guess he's power forward, but it's not a good position here on DraftKings anyway. What do you think here? Any other top scoring forwards that you want to mention before we wrap things up with the pivot position and whatever the news dump that's going to be coming in here in a couple minutes with the 6:30 injury report?
Yeah. I don't think he's actually going to be contrarian just because he's played so well over the last couple of games. But Jonathan Kuminga has been closing games for the Warriors. And even last game with Draymond Green and Steph Curry both back, they still found big minutes to give him. So maybe Kuminga isn't making his shots. He makes a couple of boneheaded decisions, and Steve Kerr just pulls the plug on Kuminga. But he's another guy we have projected for a modest 17% ownership. I'm a little concerned that he ends up coming in more popular than that, and then his minutes dry up if he isn't making his shots. But if we do actually hold the 17% ownership projection on Jonathan Kuminga, I'm willing to take a chance on the upside, because not only is he playing much better the last couple of games, but he's playing so well that it's a way that I think we can kind of project out, where you have to assume, or at least I'm assuming, you don't have to, but I'm thinking that the most likely scenario is that Kuminga continues to play a few extra minutes because of how well he's played. It's hard for me to envision that Steve Kerr, unless he's just totally terrible or really pisses off Steve Kerr, I don't think he's going to go away from Kuminga at this point.
So he actually ended up being my recommended play of the day in the free DFS Building Blocks article utilizing OddsShopper. I found that one this morning, the under on 28.5 points, rebounds, and assists. It was available at -110, not only on BetMGM, but also Hard Rock, which I'm able to use here in Florida. My thinking behind it was the last two games he's had have been a phenomenal stretch. Right, coming off the bench, not missing any shots, or at least it feels that way. He's averaging almost 36 minutes off the bench, 34 points, almost 10 boards, 4 assists. But if we look at his per 36 rates, he drops down to about a 23.7 PRA. So the reason I wanted to look at the per 36 is I said, if he somehow keeps these minutes and regresses to a more normal playing type here, what does that baseline look like? And that was enough below the PRA, which I was willing to go there, but I'll still play him in DFS. But this is just a way you can find that little bit of advantage that's there by utilizing the OddsShopper.
Yeah, and also with Kuminga, just taking into account what his upside is for DFS tournaments, which I think it's pretty clear that there's an upside there. And also game against the Cleveland Cavaliers, because the Warriors are home, pretty tight spread. It's only a 4-point spread. It's actually the tightest one on the entire slate.
Yeah, it's good. I'm kind of looking forward to seeing how that one plays out tonight. That's in the 10 o'clock window, so we should be able to see some of that after the football game, or more if the starters are pulled relatively early, depending on what Detroit decides to do. I see we have a banner. We have a banner and a little sponsor here. So I want to give a shout out here to DK Pick 6. You guys can see if you come in through our link, you can get a $100 deposit match. So that's pretty slick there. And you also can get up to $100 in Pick 6 credits with the $5 deposit. But if you combine that with our link join offer, which Jordan has up on the screen, that's where you can look at the 11 other places that you can get not only deposit bonuses, but you can also get Sims access, full access to any Sims sport for a month. So for each book or pick'em site you are able to sign up with, and Pick 6 is there as well. So DraftKings has a couple representatives on that site, but a lot of people already have the DK Sportsbook and obviously DK DFS, but Pick 6 is one in there, Rebets in there. a few others that you might not have signed up for. But if you look at the instructions that are on the landing page, come in through our link or the little buttons that are on that landing page there. Once you have followed whatever the instructions are to get your best bet or best bonus in there from the sites after you've made your first wager and it's settled, or your first pick'em card, take a screenshot of that, take a screenshot of your welcome email, send that to support@stokastic.com and let us know which month of or which sport you would like to get Sims access for a month. You can split them up. You can do, if you get 3 of these, you can do 1 NBA, 2 NFL, vice versa, all in one sport, whatever you would like. But check that out. That is link join and also pick 6 from DraftKings. All right. Where is our news drop? We have the Charlotte's starting lineup is Misic, Seth Curry. Interesting. Josh Green, slightly interesting. Miles Bridges, Mark Williams. We have Kyle Kuzma coming off the bench. It's going to be Carrington, Brogdon, Koulibaly, Champagny, and Alex Sarr. We know that Alex, that's for tomorrow's game. Okay, so those are the main ones there. So Kuzma, first game back, out for a long time. Kind of hard to get overly excited about him. But Seth Curry starting. Does he move into prominence for you? He only played 24 or 26 minutes in the last game. I believe he was the starter there. He hasn't really played much over 26 this season. He usually caps out in the low 20s. That's someone that if he wasn't starting, you'd be nervous as heck to play him, because we have seen him come in, it was like 2 weeks ago, where the only reason he came in is because somebody else got hurt or in foul trouble or something, and he played like, one rotation, and then we didn't see him for the rest of the game. When he's starting, now you can kind of say, okay, well, he's probably going to play 18, maybe 20, 21 minutes. I don't see him ever getting over 24, but what is your read on him there? Because he is super cheap across the DFS sites.
Yeah. So as far as Seth Curry goes, the reason that he is going to be somebody who lands into my lineups, and it's not like he's going to project massively well or anything like that, and he was expected to start, but the reason he's going to make his way into lineups for me is just because he's cheap on a slate that doesn't have that many cheap guys to be going to. So Seth Curry, played 22 minutes last game. I think more likely than not, he probably plays more than that today. Overall, he has made 6 starts this season, and he's averaging 26 minutes. So that's what I think is the most likely scenario. I think we're getting about 26 minutes out of Seth Curry. And what was our projection on him? Yeah, actually, we did have a pretty light minutes projection on Curry. We only had him at 21 minutes. We had, maybe we might have had Salon projected to start because we had him at 27 minutes and Seth Curry at 21. So this actually could change our projections a little bit here. I think we're about to see. And Rich is on projection, and I'm sure that he's working on this right now. But I would assume that Seth Curry plays more than 21 minutes and Salon plays less than 27.
All right, that is reasonable. That for me, that would give me a little bit more confidence in Curry. But as he just injury prone guy. All right, where is the rest of the news? Do we have? I'm going to Discord. Let's see. Did anybody tag me? Nope. Nobody tagged me, Greg.
I could answer these. We've got a couple of them right here. Actually, 2 from Cap and Akella. So Cap and Akella, first question was, can I get a guard and a forward recommendation for single entry tonight? 2 players, salary, ownership, agnostic, and thanks. All right. So he just wants us to tell him 2 guys that we think he should be playing in single entry tonight. And all right, so there's a couple of different ways we can answer this question. Let's give him a couple of, I know he only asked for 2, but we could go above and beyond here, Mac. Let's give him, and this will be helpful to other people too, a couple of chalky options who people should be playing in single entry. Then each you and I could give out one contrarian option that we like as well for single entry. As far as the chalky guys, it's pretty hard for me to say to get away from Bridges as well as Spencer Dinwiddie. I think those are 2 guys, despite their popularity, that should be in single entry. Would you agree with that, Emac?
Yes.
Okay. And then let's each find a contrarian option to give Cap and Akella to play in a single entry. He also asked for a guard and a forward. So give you a couple of chalky options for guard and forward. So now, Emac, pick out and whoever you want. Give him a contrarian option And then I'll also do a contrarian option. If you do a front court player, I'll do a backcourt player. And
Sure. I was going to say, I think Tyrese Maxey, we still are keeping Joel Embiid in the projections here, and there's 3 games, so there's going to be flexibility. But if you want to, when you're running 150, having flexibility is different than when you're running one lineup. So I think trying to plan to have Tyrese Maxey in the game or in your one roster is a good way to go here, because I think others may be boxed out. Again, if you're just playing single entry, it's a different strategy there.
All right, so that was where you went for a contrarian option there with Tyrese Maxey. I think it's a very reasonable guy to be playing in single entry. Obviously, especially if Joel Embiid is out. Would you be interested in him even if Embiid plays, or would you want to get off him to any of the other late games at that point?
I think it's okay, but I think with 3 other games there, if you're making sure you have him and then your utility slot or one other slot available, you can then maneuver into something different if you wanted to get away from that, and you'd have an out there. I don't think it's the end of the world if suddenly you were trapped with that. And you had to play Tyrese Maxey again in an up-paced game that maybe is out of hand-ish early, and Embiid maybe doesn't take his full final rotation, but Embiid's out there, or pardon me, Maxey's out there just making sure they get the win. Nothing wrong with that.
Let's see, a front court player who's lower owned, and you went with Maxey, who's projected for 10% ownership. So I'll at least find somebody who's projected sub 20% owned for him to play in the front court here. And let's see, you know what, in kind of a similar sort of vein for a front court player, I'll do something that Eric had done the other day when we were talking about lower owned players to roster. If Derek Lively is going to be out again, Daniel Gafford is going to be a very, very strong option. We've now seen him put up 2 starts in a row in the absence of Derek Lively. He played extremely well in both those, which should pretty much be expected. Daniel Gafford's a really good fantasy producer. I really don't understand how he's not more expensive, considering we now have multiple games of there not being Derek Lively out here. I mean, a $5K price point for Daniel Gafford, when if you go and you look at what he's done in those couple of games, he's played 29 and 28 minutes. This is a guy who we should expect to be around a fantasy point per minute, if not even higher than that. So with that being the case, we know that Derek Lively is potential to sit here. It's been a while that he's been on the injury report, and Gafford for the year, now he's made 14 starts. In those starts, he's averaged 23 minutes and 26 fantasy points, but those also were games that Lively was in for a lot of them. So then if all of a sudden you're going to say, hey, no Lively, and Gafford is going to play the 28 to 29 minutes he's played the last couple of games, well, then he's projecting for mid-30s fantasy points. So the current price point for him is just not correct. And you want to make sure you have flexibility to play Gafford should Lively be ruled out. So Daniel Gafford.
All right, we have a super chat here. Yobi Trice says, call me crazy, but I'm fading Misic but sticking with Bridges and Williams. I'm not impressed with Misic's game log, and the guard position is too valuable tonight. I think we're in agreement with you that it's a tenuous situation here. We want to go in eyes wide open with Misic, so fading him, nothing wrong with that at all. We went through the numbers of what he did in his 9 starts. I don't think it's the end of the world if you move in a different direction. We didn't really talk about Williams at all here. So he is someone that they're ramping back up with the minutes. He is, let's see, in his last 4 games, earliest to going backwards, he has 29, as is FanDuel scoring, 29 fantasy points, 36, 29, 33. He's had 22, 26, 19, and 19 minutes. So he clearly has that fantasy upside there on a per minute basis. They want to get him up closer to 30 again. I don't think we're going to see a big jump going right to 30, but I think we can get him up to 20, or they can get him up to 26, 27 minutes. And he, in the matchup against the Bulls, etc., I think that's like a 1.2, 1.3 fantasy point per minute type situation that's within his wheelhouse there, because he'll gain some, efficiencies. If he was going to be on the court longer than that, that rate would go down, but his overall points probably would go up a little more. I don't think that's going to be the case tonight, but 27, 28 minutes from him, that'd be a nice little bonus here. So I think Yobi, where you're going with this is a good way.
Yeah, it was. Let me read the question for myself here, but feeding me. So I'm going to be playing a good amount of Micic. My last sim run, he was in about half my lineups. Going to have to re-update for the Hornets starting lineup. I don't think that's going to change too much as far as Micic goes, but If you're just playing one lineup, it depends. If you're playing a bunch of lineups and you have 0% of Micic, I think that's a mistake. If you're just playing one lineup and Micic isn't it, that's totally fine.
All right. Another guy that was kind of interesting to me is Walker Kessler. If you look at his game logs, he tends to get, or it looks like there's a pattern enough of him getting a few extra minutes when he goes against Jokic because he is best equipped to deal with him. We also have John Collins being out. So I think that is one that is attainable upside. This is all accounted for in the projections, etc. But that's what gets you to that upper range in the range of outcomes. So I think he's someone that's a viable option as well. Many fantasy point per dollar centers tonight.
We have a couple of other Discord questions as well. So I'll hit on these here. One is from Mike. Mike1377 wants to know favorite pay up on FanDuel and favorite values. So on the FanDuel side of things, EMAC, favorite pay up option. It is definitely harder to get to Jokic on FanDuel with him being, only one center he could roster over there. But EMAC, favorite pay up option on FanDuel and our favorite value.
I'd probably try to work Sabonis in because you can get him at power forward and not give up one of the point per dollar centers. So I would go that route if you're not going to go with Jokic. And then on the cheaper side here, we didn't really mention Patrick Williams either. God, he is someone that this is a matchup where he can succeed in. It's a freewheeling matchup. There's not a lot of great players on the other side. Hopefully he can keep himself out of foul trouble, pick up some defensive stats. He's someone I would have interest in on FanDuel at 4,500 at power forward.
I agree with you. I think he's a really strong option on both sides too. And his minutes are going to start to go up going forward. So I think that he's somebody who definitely makes sense. As far as my favorite spend up option on FanDuel, if I was just to choose one, does it have to be somebody super expensive? Can it be a little bit cheaper? I don't know. You tell me, Mac. What's the first spend up? What am I allowed to say?
Oh, I think if you get above 8,000 on FanDuel, that's kind of spendy.
I wanted you to say lower than that.
I think if you get up to 7,200, that's spendy.
So I wanted you to say more specifically the $7,800 range because Paul George, I was going to answer him no matter what you said your answer was, but so Paul George is $7,800, shooting guard, small forward, good matchup against the Portland Trailblazers. I think he warrants some exposure, even if Joel Embiid was to be in. But if Embiid's out, you got really good MP on Paul George, a reasonable price tag, good matchup as well against Portland. Game is in Portland. I don't think there should be too much blowout risk there. So Paul George, especially as a lower owned option on FanDuel, I think he already is under owned. And then he's somebody who looks like one of the best options on the entire slate if Embiid sits.
All right. We have 14 minutes before lock here. Let's see what else is coming through.
We had one other question in Discord. This is from Larson407. Larson wants to know, is Draymond Green cash viable over on DraftKings? I wouldn't play Draymond Green in cash. If you have him in like a lineup or two for GPPs, that's reasonable, but he just doesn't project well enough to be a cash game option.
I would agree. Super chat here. Thoughts on Kobe White?
I don't know if I don't know if he's dealing with an injury or something, but his entire game's been a little bit off as of late in terms of the minutes haven't been there, the usage hasn't been there. But if there's any spot for him to pick up a bigger role, it has to be with no Levine and no Dosunmu on the court tonight for the Chicago Bulls. So I think that he's definitely a very high upside tournament target. I'm going to be overweight to the field to him. I'm definitely a little bit concerned because something seems off with him. But at least for today, yeah, I think he's a good GPP play.
Yeah, his last two games have been good shooting, at least from the field. One was kind of sketchy from three, but there's a hitch in the giddy up here. They're asking about Julian Phillips as the starter. So he was a second round draft pick 2 years ago, came out of Tennessee. Yeah, is kind of the answer on that. There's your minimum 3K baller. I'm just looking here. He's had it's hard to judge because he hasn't had a ton of minutes here. This is his second start of the year. If we use the criteria of his last two starts, he scored 20 and 20.10 DraftKings points, or 20.1 DraftKings points.
Yeah, we have him projected pretty poorly. He's cheap enough to where, you wouldn't think it's very hard for somebody who's 3K to kill a lineup. The only way a guy who's 3K really kills a lineup is if they take a 0 or if they enable you to pay up for a stud who doesn't end up going off. But with that said, we've got our projections updated for Julian Phillips starting, and it doesn't really paint the most rosy of pictures for him. We've got him projected for 21 minutes. In those 21 minutes, because he's not a good fantasy producer, we have him projected for 13.8 fantasy points. This is a guy who barely scores over half a fantasy point per minute. So keep that in mind. If you got a guy who's going to be scoring like 0.5, 0.6 fantasy points per minute, you really need them to play a ton to produce any kind of real upside, or just have like he goes 7 of 8 from the field, one of those games, which happens from time to time. So Julian Phillips, he is viable just because he's so cheap, but yeah, I don't think he's somebody you should be wanting to build lineups around or anything.
All right. I'm just laughing at chat. This is good. Love me or hate me, I'm here. They asked you a non-football question. What do you think about the Detroit starters? I say tune into NFL Live before lock and find out what Lafayette and Matt Kajeski have to say.
Yeah, I'm probably not going to play the NFL slate because I'm just going to be playing the NBA, and I don't have a good read for what's going to happen in that game. Like, our starter's going to play the entire game. It's just a headache I personally don't want to deal with. So for your football questions, I don't know. I'm doing basketball tonight, which I'm happy to be doing. I don't want to deal with this particular football slate for me.
I was gung ho for it, and then my interest in it has waned a little bit, but I ended up actually playing. I'll put some team free money out there, free money lineups out there. I went 1-55 on the DK main slate, but dropping the link there into chat, that is for the NFL breakdown. You can read what my thoughts are on that. It is completely free, and then tune into Live Before Lock at 7:15 for NFL. All right. Let's see if there's any other news coming in. Oh, other than Julian Phillips starting, we look pretty basic.
Yeah. By the way, Capanicella, because he said his audio wasn't working before, just tag me if you weren't able to hear the answer to the question. We did mention it after it was that you sent that follow-up message, but if you didn't hear, then certainly hit me up and let me know there. Cream did leave us a question, and he tagged both of us in this one here. Two questions just came in. Both of them you got tagged in, EMAC. One of them is from Cream. Do you want to, now that you're excited that people are trying to get your attention, do you want to read it off?
Yeah, KPJ or Dunn. Well, I would probably go with KPJ because I went and picked up Dunn in my season-long leagues, and I have a bad history with that. They just fail me. So on that reason alone, I would go that route. It's kind of a coin flip. In this one, I have both players have had decent run and crappy run with the Clippers. If push came to shove, I would probably go with KPJ tonight.
There's certainly more, I'd say there's a little bit more safety with Dunn as a starter and him playing bigger minutes, but there's way more upside with Kevin Porter Jr. So assuming this is a GPP related question, KPJ for me.
All right. And then how much clay is too much clay on DK tonight?
I'm doing one final run of my lineups. My last run, though, I had him at about 40% of lineups. So that's probably around where I'm going to be on clay. And that number more likely to go down than go up later on in the night, especially if we get something like if Joel Embiid's out and I'm trying to get to Paul George, like that's going to take away from some of my clay exposure. So for right now, I have 40% of him. And I think there's a fairly decent chance that goes down because any players that get ruled out would just create a little bit better of value. But either way, clay looks like one of the better options on the slate. Is there like a number that you are getting to in your lineups that you're uncomfortable with or something, EMAC?
No, that was a question that came in.
Oh, I didn't even realize that.
No. You were tagged in it. I'm shocked that you didn't see it. You're all knowing on this. You're able to. You're like Neo with the Matrix. Yeah,
also
you're like
kind of funny, but I just realized that we got a Klay Thompson question from Pat Klay Tomstar in our Discord channel. So
perhaps we should change our answer to make him happy.
I assume that there is, if you're naming yourself Pat Klay Tomstar, I assume that there is no number that's too high of Klay exposure that you'd want to get to.
Yes. All right. I'm going to run some lineups here. Apparently we have the Sims. You guys should be trying out the Sims. Again, go through that link join. You can get in to a variety of sites there. There's got to be one there you haven't signed up for. There's 11 on that page. But follow those instructions there, and you too could get a month of any sport of your choosing maximum Sims package. Check it out. Grab it now, and you'll get everything before the NBA All-Star break. Okay. All right. Who is the person that you are afraid of that you do not have well represented in your lineups from these early games? It's got to be a Chicago person, right?
No, because I'm getting exposure to the Chicago guys. I would say any of these ancillary pieces for the Knicks. It's such a good matchup that they have here going up against the Washington Wizards, and somehow these teams went to overtime the other day. So while I get some exposure to the Knicks, it's nothing like overwhelming. And if you get one of these spots where it's like, hey, look, Mikal Bridges made all of his shots and scores 50 fantasy points again, like that's not an outcome I would really be thrilled with. So any of these ancillary pieces from the Knicks having ceiling games would not be great for me.
All right. Another chat in Discord, getting 90% message too much. I think I'm going to cap mine around 60.
I mean, I think I'm surprised you're getting that much because, I'm about to do another run. So I'll see if things change. But the Sims weren't giving me anywhere near that much of him.
Unencumbered, I just got 76% without doing anything. It looks like he is about 50-ish%. So I'm gonna match the field with him because I also have him in my one Yahoo lineup. So that will work there. Dinwiddie, 93%. I think I can accept that. Miles Bridges, 77. Klay Thompson, 67. That's an awful lot. I feel a little more comfortable with 55. I'm getting some Jamal Murray. I'm getting nice Mark Williams there, doubling the field. I'm good with that. He is in my Yahoo lineup. And then Patrick Williams, I don't want to go too overboard. I'm going to cap him at 35%. That's doubling the field. Walker Kessler, I mentioned that I think he is an interesting player who could pick up a few more minutes with Jokic out. So I'm going to give him a little boost there. And then Jokic, I want to get a little bit more than 20%. And then I will upload my lineups. This is all you got to do. So easy, even I can do it, guys.
So easy, even a caveman can do it.
Jordan is masterful with this.
That's true. Nobody's mastered clicking the buttons quite like the one and only Jordan Klein there. So yeah, I am also doing one final run of the Sims. But anyway, to Cream, and also I don't have I'm going to play a good amount of Micic doing my final run here. I think that he's going to be in probably somewhere like 60-ish% of my lineups or anything like that. I was just surprised he had 90% because that was a much higher number than what I've been getting to. How are you doing on your lineups, EMAC?
I am going to download and then upload. I did start using the lineup manager, but I haven't figured out how to. I was using it for the that big Christmas tournament because I had 40 tickets into that. So I just built out 40 lineups, and it was easier doing the same multiples. And then it was just one click of the button to get that bad boy out and up into DraftKings. Now I still do it the old-fashioned way, but I'm okay with that. It's just one extra step.
We do have a super chat there too, EMAC.
You want to read it out loud?
Well, I wasn't sure if you wanted to, but Eurotowel says last man in on FanDuel has got $4,900 left. It could be a small forward or a power forward. EMAC, who would you like best for $4,900 small forward or power forward on DraftKings?
I would probably go with Patrick Williams. You are going to leave a little bit on the table there because I think he was 4,500, but I would go that.
I agree. The caveat being we don't know who else is in the lineup, if
In
he
the
has a ton
lineup,
of Bulls players, or if there's, some sort of scenario here where maybe he already has Patrick Williams in the lineup. But I agree with you, Patrick Williams.
And then just quickly look, yeah, Patrick Williams is the one that pops up on our numbers. Kamara checks out 5 fantasy points, probably 2 fantasy points below him, but that gives you a little later flexibility at small forward. And then you could always roll the dice on Caleb Martin. He plays with that Philadelphia game. He would get a little bit of a boost if Embiid is out. Patrick Williams does lock in 2 minutes.
Yep, I've got my final lineups being uploaded right now, EMAC.
Mine are in. So let's see if we got anything else here. I go back to chat, see how many tomatoes have been heading my way. Will Emac get his lineups in? Yes, he will.
That should be a market that's offered on DraftKings.
Sometimes it's not good. Sometimes maybe yes. Sometimes maybe no. My voice is the opposite of Davis Maddox's voice. Annoying. Like, so Davis's voice is annoying. Mine is, because I have a feeling we appeal and annoy different ends of the spectrum. He's one guy I've never met in the thing, but I like him. He's been like everybody's kid brother for the last 12 years in the DFS world. Anyone like Trey Murphy tonight? His price has been ticking up. So, yeah, I don't hate him, but not quite as exciting. And we are 30 seconds away from lock here. Lonzo versus Misic. Misic for sure. Don't play Lonzo.
Lonzo is I don't have any lineups with Lonzo today. The only player I have more exposure to than Misic right now is Dinwiddie. My most exposed I have 3 players who are in more than half my lineups: Dinwiddie, Misic, and Miles Bridges.
All right. I think we're good. We're at lock. Feeling good about this, Greg? You ready to go do some football only and ignore the NFL?
Am I ready to do football only?
Basketball, sorry, basketball only,
sure.
and ignore the NFL.
These must be the people at the different ends of the spectrum that.
Well, I was trying to think how do I do a Davis Maddox voice?
All right, well, EMAC, you've certainly closed the show with a bang, so we can't go anywhere from here. We might as well just click the button and end it, Jordan.
All right, we're good. 3, 2, 1. Goodbye.